And for severe weather, we have some diagrams here that talk about all tornadoes versus significant tornadoes. So our tornado season really picks up in the month of April and peaks in the month of June. In terms of significant tornadoes, you can see the percentage-wise, the cool season months have a higher percentage of tornadoes, less tornadoes overall. But if tornadoes occur in the cool season or earlier in the spring, more likely they are to be higher end tornadoes. Obviously, there's exceptions to that. You know, we just had the 30-year anniversary of the Plainfield F5 tornado, which occurred at the end of August. But you know, stronger tornadoes in general, when there's higher levels of wind shear, if there's enough instability. And time of day being, you know, in the mid-afternoon, early evening hours is the peak time frame for tornadoes. And you'll see this sort of pattern reference as well for other types of severe weather. It lengthens a little bit for, let's say, you know, the flooding can occur really at any time. Damaging winds have a similar peak, but can occur in the early morning hours or the overnight hours as well. And in terms of being ready to be prepared for severe weather at any time, you know, here's some ones that kind of felt contrary to the times of year and outside the times of year and even the time of day when they're most likely to occur. We had the Taylorville down in central Illinois tornado on December 1st, 2018 that it happening in December, not the peak time of year. Washington, Illinois, the EF4 tornado on November 17th that happened in the late morning hours in the month of November. And then the Coal City tornado happened kind of later on in terms of when tornadoes usually occur, kind of off the peak hours there and towards dark, which also makes them more dangerous. So now we move on to forecasting tools for you to use in terms of being ready for severe weather when you're ready to help out and become to be a storm spotter and help the National Weather Service. So that means having an idea of what to expect. And in your daily weather assessment, use the term what, when, and where. It helps you plan ahead. And then when you get into monitoring mode, you have higher situational awareness, which actually improves your safety, promotes more effective reporting. So we have a page dedicated to that, a briefing page that you can go to. And then when it gets down to it, when the rubber hits the road, knowing the difference between a watch and a warning. Believe it or not, a lot of people think a watch is the same as or worse than a warning. When a watch is issued, that means that conditions have become favorable for severe weather and or tornadoes. They might form and affect your area. And that's when you should be monitoring information, keeping an eye on the sky. When a warning is issued, that's when it's time to take action. A severe storm or tornado is expected in your area. That's when it's time to act immediately, get in, get down, and cover up. So, in the daily weather assessment, what's it going to do? Do you need to be concerned? You have the hazardous weather outlook, you know, the text and graphical form of the HWO. We'll talk about storm motion potential, SPC outlooks, which I'm sure you're familiar with, the detailed forecast, and the weather story. And this is one that we did for the derecho day, where we tried to convey the severity of the developing situation that day. We could already see it taking shape off to our west. And then when we're in monitoring mode, you know what's expected. We talk about what the storm mode may be, what the atmosphere may be capable of. How do you monitor? This is our former radar page, so don't want to confuse things here. We know we've gotten a lot of comments on that, but the new radar page available off our website is going to look a little bit differently than that. I also highly recommend downloading your favorite app, whether it be a free or 4K app. And then also graphical nowcasts. We issue these in advance of severe weather to give an idea on timing for your area. And this is kind of the in between the watch and the warning phase, or while warnings are in effect. And the warnings themselves, the watches and the warnings in themselves can talk a little bit about storm motion. Our weather briefing page is going to be located on the lower right portion of our website. You just click briefing page. And for thunderstorms, you can click the thunderstorm tab. And that's where you would scroll down and you can access it off our homepage as well. So here's where we'll talk a little bit more about radar reflectivity, so a little bit of the basics of our radar, and that refers to reflectivity from a single elevation slice. And our website will show the base being only that base elevation angle of half a degree. And then we also have velocity. So when you download an app and you want to learn more about it, we're measuring velocity along the radar beam when a pulse is sent out and then returned back in the particles and the speed and even direction in which they're moving. When we see green colors, that's in the perspective of the radar moving towards the radar, and then moving away from the radar is the red colors, and that's kind of like car tail lights. So we can infer rotation when red and green are side by side with respect to the radar. So when you're looking at it, and you can actually see that inferred rotation there. When the reds and greens are together and imply rotation, that's when we're most concerned for the possibility of a developing tornado situation. And then we could tie both of them together. We talked about earlier on a hook echo over supercell, and also the reds and the greens, the cool colors and the warm colors together, with respect to radar, can imply that rotation that we have drawn on there. But did want to point out to you that if you're wanting to learn a little bit more about these, that seeing reds and greens together, but when the radar is located off to the left there, and this was a microburst day back in 2016, the radar is located off to the southwest, and the greens are heading towards it, and the red's heading away from the radar. That's when you know that that's actually a situation where you're talking about a downdraft or a downburst. In this case, a really strong downburst. Blue Island had, I think, really high-end wind damage, indicative of 80 mile per hour or stronger winds. So we get to the meat and potatoes here, the safe storm spotting. Remembering, your monitoring phase being communication and escape routes. So this is a really key one. When you're out mobile spotting, know the local road network. You're heading to an area that you don't live at, know the local road network. And also, if you get caught in a dangerous situation, be able to get indoors quickly. If you're spotting from home, be in your safe zone or shelter, and then can provide a report after it's safe to, after the storm passes. When you're mobile spotting, we highly recommend with a partner, one pair of eyes on the road, one pair of eyes on the weather. And I've said this early on, we don't encourage dangerous storm chasing. We'll not ask a spotter to drive into a dangerous storm. And we've kind of alluded to this multiple times, the right-hand rule for spotting supercells. So you want to position yourself so that the updraft area is to your left, and the heavy rain and hail, the core of the storm, is to your right. So you should be positioned where, and in the direction the storm is moving, in this case off to the northeast, you should be where you're not in danger of that storm suddenly changing direction and overcoming you, where the possible tornado would be and you can't see it. And added on to this, using that really well-developed supercell from 2015, April 9th, knowing that road network and being able to position yourself, you don't want to get caught in that heavy rain and hail core. In this case, the storm is moving northeastward, and if you put yourself on a road that took you into that core, and then you emerge from the core, you might be face-to-face with a tornado. In this case, would have been the EF4 tornado. So you want to pick a direction of approach that places you in a safe spot so that the storm is moving off to your northeast and you're not getting in that blinding core and then possibly getting run down by a tornado. When spotting the supercell, only have a good view of the sky when you spot. So be aware of your surroundings and have that escape route. And we provide this, especially being in a large, big chunk of our area being one of the largest metropolitan areas in the country. We would never recommend trying to outrun a tornado in an urban area because they can move really quickly. And this is the case here as a last resort that you don't want to be in, that you having a lifeline, a ditch, or a low spot. The key is to not put yourself in that situation, but if you do get into it, the least bad thing to do would be taking shelter in a ditch or a low spot. I know that a bridge or overpass does not offer protection from a tornado. You're going to want to be aware of debris falling out of the sky, even some distance from the tornado. And those that are rain wrapped are especially dangerous. And this is an example of an obstructed view. You're putting yourself in danger if you don't have a view of what's happening at ground level. And I'll start this video from really historic day with tornadoes. I believe we have 4 happening at the same time. And this one is a great example of something we would never train you to do safely, because it's not safe, but you'll see that pretty clearly.
It's moving up a whole town.
You may be sitting there asking yourself, what is going on here? And what are they doing so close to this tornado? And you would be right, because regardless of how experienced these chasers are, this is a life-threatening situation, being this close to this particular tornado, which was, again, an EF4 with winds of like 170 miles an hour at max.
Oh, look at the little horses dancing in there. That's crazy. There's the other.
And then, at the end of that video, the other tornado. So they're in such a dangerous spot right there. So you never want to put yourself in this situation. Be aware of that falling debris. Just don't be that close to the tornado. And here's a quick time lapse of a rain-wrapped tornado, of a nearly stationary tornado back in May of 2013. So a lot of times you won't see a tornado just kind of sitting there. And in this case it was. And then, sure enough, there it goes. Where's the tornado? This is a wedge tornado, and it's gone. But it's still there, and you don't know for sure that it's not going to be moving soon after. Even though it was stationary for a while, it could suddenly start moving and put these chasers at risk. You can see the tour bus showed up after they couldn't see the tornado anymore. That was kind of just spinning in place. And then we move on to safety for spotters for squall lines. And really, I'm going to say this here, we greatly appreciate spotter reports, but, we talked a lot already about the derecho back in August, and we talked a lot about squall lines. They're not really safe to spot necessarily because there isn't a good place to put yourself, where you're not at risk